I mean, it's Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points. I would hope Cooper's put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think this is going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce.
You were live, folks.
Good afternoon. Good evening, I should say, to all you East Coasters. It's like still 8 p.m. my time, so it's a little bit afternoon. I'm just kidding. But hope you guys are having a good night. I know it's all you degenerates if you're in here this late with us. I didn't have a terrible day. I ended up losing like a unit and a half, but every single one of my losses, besides a couple, like the Wichita State over was never close, but I had a couple that I like. For instance, Georgia State is just an absolute killer, catching 6 up at the half, lose the second half by like 15, not to cover. Chattanooga was another one. I know you were on Chattanooga as well.
I laid off that one last. I was like, yeah. I could see both ways.
Well, I knew I was dead when I got off our live and I was taking my kids swimming, and I was going through Twitter and I saw it was so popular, and I was like, oh, that's not good. Yeah. So.
Did you catch the Lowell game by chance?
Did I catch the Lowell game? Of course I did. I had them in a money line parlay. Those cocksuckers screwed me over, dude. Of course I caught that one.
They missed like 8 layups last 10 minutes.
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh my
Trevor,
God.
thank you. So it's been a night, but hey, it's college basketball. It is what it is. You kind of just live with the punches. I mean, I pretend like baseball doesn't do the same thing to me when there's a bullpen blow up. It's a little bit, I guess sometimes things are a little bit easier for me to handle, I guess. But anyway, let's get into it. Not a whole bunch of games on tomorrow, but some actually decent ones, especially this first one we're talking about, Michigan and Notre Dame. Michigan and Purdue. I see that gold and I think Notre Dame. Both of these teams really off of kind of shitty performances, I guess. I guess the Michigan game, they kind of bounced back, but both of their last 2 games against Minnesota and Northwestern, both went to OT. Super square, but I still think this is a Purdue spot at home in Mackey with Michigan off of 2 games that both went to overtime. I don't think you're going to see Purdue have 2 bad games in Mackey in a row. What say you, Trevor?
Yeah, Purdue's a big bet for me tomorrow. I mean, you just lost to Ohio State at home. I think they were up 13 or something at half, and they just kind of figured they were going to coast to a win in that second half, and Ohio State came out and hit everything. I know Michigan here is going to have Vlad and Danny down low, so they'll have some size. I think Burgess will be all right. He's a little more mobile, I guess you could say, to an extent. And Coffin Wren, he's not a fantastic player, but he'll play physical with you. So I think that could maybe upset Vlad a little bit here. But the big one is the turnovers for Michigan. I mean, they turn it over an ungodly amount, and Purdue forces a lot of turnovers. So this is a pure just building play too. Mackey at home after a loss. I know they have IU on deck, but that's a week away. So I think they're going to be able to compartmentalize that just a little bit. And show up here and just smash them. I think maybe first half and full game. Just if you want to double dip on this, I don't think you can really go wrong.
Yeah, I really can't really add much to that. Pretty much everything that I was thinking, the same thing. The only thing that I will say is that I've been giving TKR some shit this year, but he's actually starting to play better. I don't know if it's just energy or whatever it is, but he just seems like it's a little bit more involved all around. It seemed like earlier in the year, if he didn't get involved early, he was kind of dead the rest of the way. And I don't know, maybe it was the game. Maybe him when he went off at Oregon, that was something that changed my mind about him. But it was really impressive. But yeah, I agree. Like you said, the turnover issues for Michigan, especially facing a team like Purdue with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer at the points. I mean, that's going to be a really, really big issue for them. So I played Purdue, I think 3.5. Yeah, 3.5. Ooh, nice. What'd you get it at?
4.5 minus 105.
So yeah, I think you might be able to get 3.5 if you pay 120 on it on FanDuel. But regardless, I don't think it's going to matter. The 3.5, 4.5, it doesn't really matter. If Purdue's not playing with their food like they did in the second half versus Ohio State, which I have a hard time believing they do, they should win this game by double digits. So like you said, Michigan has a lot of size, but at the same time, again, the turnovers in the guard play should change things. And not to mention the fact that Purdue is going to slow this game down and force Michigan to play in the half court. And that's not something that you want with Michigan. You want Michigan in a more free-flowing type of game where these guys like Danny Wolf can use his length and stuff in transition. They're not going to be able to do that against Purdue that likes to play at a crawl and play through their offense. So, Purdue for me. Well, I have a full unit on Purdue as well. So, next game up, Iowa. These bastards. I didn't play him against UCLA, but it was like, I think one of my biggest bets of the year. I had over 1.5 units on them against Minnesota. They lose outright. And now they have a Penn State team that Iowa's still at home, but at the same time, I mean, you're getting a Penn State team that hasn't really looked great, but they've also played like the who's who of the Big Ten. Indiana, Illinois, Oregon, Michigan State. The Rutgers game was a little, obviously they're not the who's who, but Rutgers has been playing pretty decent basketball lately. Obviously, so again, I don't really I do think that's somewhat of a decent win for Penn State. So I really want to say that I think Iowa bounces back here, but I don't really want to deal. I think that I'm done dealing with them as far as playing defense is concerned. So I would lean over 168.5. That's a freaking huge number. I haven't bet it. I'm kind of curious to see what it does, but I would only lean points here. For me, I can't trust Iowa's defense, not at all. And not to mention the fact that Penn State can rebound. They can turn you over just as much. Both teams Penn State shoots pretty damn good free throws. It would be Penn State or the over for me. From what I've seen from Iowa defensively over the last couple of weeks, just doesn't really give me anything to write home about. The only time that they've looked somewhat decent in the last like 3 or 4 weeks against anybody was, I guess, who was it? Indiana, who's only scored 60 against them, which it is what it is. But keep in mind, they gave up 97 in Nebraska, which I keep on telling you. I'm sorry, 87 in Nebraska. I keep on telling you guys, Nebraska's terrible. They gave up 70 to New Hampshire, another terrible team. Another 88 to Utah. Again, I just don't trust this Iowa offense. So it's over or pass for me. Both teams played a decent pace, but I haven't bet it yet.
Yeah, I haven't bet it yet. I'm trying to figure out if I just want to take Penn State with the 3 or their over 82.5 team total. I don't think there's going to be a shortage of points in this one. And Penn State, I mean, they've been all right lately. Their offense hasn't been incredible, but I mean, they're still putting up 85, 81, 80 against Rutgers too. I mean, they put up 85 at Michigan State. So I don't think Iowa's really going to have a way to really slow them down. I mean, we've seen what they've done all year. They just give up points. They've given up like 270 some points the last 3 games alone. So I don't think Penn State's going to have an issue here. I'm probably going to play that team total over just because I can see both teams probably putting up 85, 90 points at least in this game. So, and I don't bet totals because whenever I bet totals, it goes complete opposite. So team totals are where I focus. So, over 82.5 for Penn State or the +3. I don't think you can really go wrong.
Yeah, I need to do a better job of looking at team totals more. I don't play them a ton because I know there's only like certain states that let you do it, and if your team's in that state, you can't. But yeah, I need to start looking at those a little bit more for sure, because I do think that isolating one team and not have to worry about it. Because I mean, like today, I had the over in the Kennesaw, New Mexico game. I had like 148. It closed 153, landed 125. Like it was never even close. But I mean, it's just one of those things where Kennesaw would have hit their team total because they were the dog. So are pretty close to it. So yeah. Again, I excuse me, I agree with Trevor. It's Penn State or the over or pass. Iowa's just not a team I'm at this point going to be laying points with at any time in the future. If I like them that much, I'll play their team total. So, man, another one where it's like 2 teams that like Washington, man. Like, do you happen to know like what they are ATS? Because I feel like they keep on losing games, but I feel like they're covering. And so, I mean, I know that they covered against Illinois. I'm curious to see what their number was again. I don't remember what their number was against Purdue, but even against Oregon, I mean, they played really, really well on the road against Oregon. I mean, they had a bad 10 minutes in the last part of that first half, and then the last part of the game. But I mean, that was a really close game. I think you were on Washington. I don't think at any point in that game you were worried about them covering, were you?
The end there when I think Shell said or something at 10-3. I was like, you gotta be. They covered all but 4 seconds of that game. Shout out that kid for smacking that three at the end. But yeah, I'm going to play Washington in this one. They've lost 5 straight. I think people are starting to buy into this UCLA team just a little bit too much. You beat Iowa and Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a great win. No bias there, but it is. Iowa, everybody's beating Iowa there. But we did our show prior to this, and my buddy said that, it is a desperation spot for Washington, and it totally is. They lost 5 straight here. At home, they've been playing a lot better. I mean, DJ Davis had 31, but they lost by 4 to Illinois when they were rolling at the time. Hung tough with Purdue. Second half, they just kind of fell apart, but USC did get them earlier in the season. But, I mean, they've just been better at home than on the road. And catching 5.5, I hate laying 5.5 numbers. It's just a nasty number. I hate it. So I will be on Washington. I think they're probably live. If they're going to cover this 5.5, they're going to be right there in this game anyway. And they're at home on a Friday night. I think this place will get up for it. And UCLA, I want to see it. I mean, you were just at home. Now you got to hit the road. I know it's still West Coast, so it's, not that far of a travel, but you're still hitting the road. And Washington has proven to be a little bit of an odd place to go play at this year for some teams. So I will take Washington plus 5.5 here. I might sprinkle money line too.
It's funny that you mentioned the 5.5 line, because there's a guy on Twitter, DGen. He's a pretty popular guy. He mentioned that like in a Passover conversation 2 years ago, and I swear to God, on almost a daily basis, I see a team that's minus 5.5 lose outright. I don't know what it is about that number, but it's just funny that you mentioned that, because I've been watching that for 2 years, because somebody made a random comment to me, and now that's every time I see it, I can never forget it. But yeah, like Trevor said, you're getting a Washington team that, kind of like I talked about the last game. Yes, they've been losing games, but Illinois, Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue, Oregon. I mean, 3 of those games were on the road, and the 2 games that were at home, like Trevor mentioned, they played really close to Illinois. They could have beat Illinois, and they really, I mean, I know they ended up losing by 10 to Purdue, but that game was really close, especially at halftime. Purdue had a fantastic, first 10 minutes of that game, or 10 minutes of that second half. And then besides that, it was all very close to even. So really, Washington had one bad 10 minutes again in their last 2 home games. They've lost them, but both of those teams are significantly better. We're talking Illinois and Purdue are significantly better than UCLA. UCLA just got done beating a Rutgers team that can't play defense. They also UCLA couldn't miss that night. And they get a Wisconsin team, which they probably, that game was back and forth the whole time. Again, Wisconsin was on the West Coast. Wisconsin could have easily won that game. I know that they ended up covering on a last-second 3, but regardless, there was no point in that game where UCLA was really pulling ahead too much, where you really were worried about Wisconsin with the firepower. So my point to all that being is that I agree with Trevor. I'm on Washington as well. I saw this number go up from 4.5 to 5.5. I haven't bet it yet because I want to see 6s, but both these teams are very kind of similar. They don't really run a very fast pace. Neither one of them shoots free throws very well. I know that the UCLA defense forces a lot of turnovers, but Washington's not super turnover prone. I think these are very, very evenly matched up teams. The only thing that worries me is UCLA inside a little bit, because they're pretty decent inside, and Washington has struggled with that. But I think that Osavor is going to be able to come to play today or tomorrow. Again, I just think that Washington, and I agree with Trevor, I think Washington is just a little bit undervalued. I think people are seeing that they're 0-5 their last few games or whatever. But again, when you stack up those 5 games and you match those up against any other team in the country, most teams are going to lose 4 out of those 5 games, especially in the Big Ten. So again, it's really hard to fault Washington for losing those types of games. So if they fall on their face against this one, so be it. But I just feel like multiple possessions is just way, way too many with, again, both teams that can't shoot free throws. And I know that Washington offense hasn't been fantastic, but again, let's not pretend that UCLA's offense is anything to write home about either. So I know they've had a couple decent nights at home, but let's see what they do now back on the road, where they've definitely struggled. So, and I would argue that maybe not Maryland, but Washington is probably better than Rutgers, and Washington, I think, is very similar, if not just as good or better than Nebraska. So again, we'll see what happens, but again, pretty decent travel, not a decent travel spot, but you're still going up to the Pacific Northwest. It's a completely different animal than California. So not that they haven't made that trip before, but I think it's going to be a Husky program tomorrow. Let's hope it hits 6, and then we can just smash it. So one more game on the docket. The team that I really can't seem to figure out in Villanova. Do you think they're good? or do you think they just? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're bad,
too,
but I think they're a decent team. I mean, they've lost 3 of their last 4 now. Shout out Georgetown for coming back there late. That was awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I know
it's hard. That's why I said
this
to you
is
first.
this is a desperation spot for Nova. I like Nova, but my angle generally with Villanova games are just take Eric Dixon threes if they're plus money. So if it's like, if I'm catching plus 105, plus 110, I'll play the 3+. Otherwise, I will play Nova plus 9.5. They're desperate here. They need this game. Marquette just came off of the beatdown of Seton Hall, but Seton Hall was also missing some guys in that game in at Seton Hall. So I think Eric Dixon and Wugo will be back, assuming he doesn't get thrown out in the first 5 minutes of this game too. But yeah, I'm going to take Nova 9.5 if the Dixon threes aren't plus money. So that's how I will play it with this one.
Yeah, those Dixon threes are just a cash cow at this point.
He gets volume. He shoots like 7 or 8 a game minimum.
Shoots a 7, and he's shooting it up like what, 47%?
Yeah,
Like
47, 46, something.
Yeah, like it's just absolutely insane. I mean, he's so good. I'm very curious to see what he does like in the NBA or whatever, because just again, whatever.
I think he's leveled up his game with the threes to where he can.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. That's why it makes it pretty interesting to see what he's going to do, because he's an amazing free throw shooter too. Like that's what the guys that you kind of want, that are smart basketball players that can hit their threes in their free throws. So very curious to see how that works out. I don't have a lean in this game. I like taking like the slower paced teams when you're getting points like this, like a Villanova 333 in the nation in average possession length, which is a stark difference from Marquette coming in at 39. The one thing that bothers me is that they can also go the opposite way. You have a home team in Marquette that, again, like Trevor said, is off an ass whooping against Seton Hall. But before that, they lost a home game to Xavier. So they're going to be, I don't think you're not going to get like a sleepy spot out of Marquette after losing their last home game, especially the way that they lost that game. And I do feel like with Marquette not turning the ball over at all, second in the nation in turnover percentage. So essentially they never turn the ball over, a la Cam Jones. But my point being is that Villanova is one of the worst teams in the country forcing turnovers. And so if you're letting Marquette get into a free flow type of game, I can see this game getting really ugly. But again, I can also see Trevor's point where Villanova is going to slow this game down out of desperation. And do I love betting Shaka Smart teams as multiple possession favorites? No, never have. We like Shaka Smart as a dog. So I don't really have a lean in this game. I guess if I had to make a play, it would be I think it'd be Marquette, to be honest with you. I just don't think that Villanova is that good. Am I going to actually bet this? Probably not. If this number gets bet down a little bit, I'll think about it. But Villanova, the only thing that I like about Marquette is that they've played like a really strong schedule. And so I do think that after playing a couple teams like DePaul and Xavier and stuff, I just don't feel like it's going to be a sleepy spot. So that, again, it's a desperate spot for Villanova, so you can play that game all you want. Yeah, it's Marquette or pass, but I don't have very much conviction on that one. I want to watch and see, because if Villanova can actually play well, then I think there could be a bet on in the next couple weeks, because this would be a really good game that you want to see them play well against. So play well. So
last year Marquette did sweep them 3 times in the regular season and ended their season in the Big East tournament. So there's that little bit of angle. I do tend to like back those angles, just a revenge spot. Especially with this Nova team. I mean, they returned a lot of guys, but they also brought in some transfers. So maybe it's not everybody's as juiced up. But, I mean, this is still a big game. Friday night, national television against Marquette. And a game they really do need. So it's a tough call. It does feel like a big line, kind of like that San Francisco tonight a little bit. It's got that weird feeling. But Nova's also hasn't played amazing the last 3-4 games. So there's that.
Yeah, and I think that you and I were both spot on. We wanted to play San Francisco, ended up not doing it because it was just kind of weird, and we were right. So, Nova's just a really hard team to figure out, because they play slow, they shoot their free throws well, and when that can really mess up teams. And we've seen that happen a couple times. So, and also can kill you with teams like what we saw against Georgetown, when they just kind of shit that game away. So a Georgetown team that's not offensively great. I mean,
no.
So yeah, we'll see what I mean. Epps did have 15 that game. Got a boy. So anyway, that's it. Only a couple games. Fridays aren't very, very great for college basketball in general. So at least there's a couple.
Take a look
ones.
at that VCU game by chance,
dude. What
they're laying 12.
I was gonna say, what the fuck is that? Like, we can talk about that for a second. Like, what?
I think they mess them up. If you look what Bonnies have done, like they're both like going opposite directions right now. VCU is wrecking teams, and the Bonnies are just getting wrecked in every single game.
The Bonnies suck.
Yeah, I'm laying it with VCU tomorrow.
I don't know. I would really want to take the points with say Bonaventure, but I honestly think I've been on them 3 of their last 4 games and I've lost every one of them. So I can't sit there and be like, oh, the Bonnies have treated me well. I think they're going to play well here today. So I think that number is very similar to, I know we've already touched on this, but very similar to the San Francisco St. Mary's game. I think this number is high for a reason, and they kind of are enticing people to bet a team like St. Bonaventure that's in the public's eye a good team. And I especially think that, and I know this probably doesn't mean nothing to a lot of people, but I think that when you have the public perception, when you have guys like Woj that go there and stuff like that, people will want to bet those teams. So I feel like now you're in a spot, we're getting into a spot where you just have our St. Bonaventure that's just completely overrated. I mean, from what they've done. I mean, not to mention, we didn't even mention the fact that they lost to BCU, or BCU beat them. Or no, what was it? Bonnies beat BCU earlier in the year, right? Yeah. So you have a little bit of revenge factor. I wish, do you know off the top of your head or on your computer what that line was for the VCU game the first time they played?
I can look real quick.
Because that would be interesting. Because if it's like 6 or 7, regardless home or road, it doesn't really matter. Like a 5-point jump has nothing to do with being on the home or on the road. But I'm just
VCU was laying 2.5 that game. So now
2.5.
Now it's up 9.5.
What the fuck? Yeah, VCU or pass. There's no question about that. I might just bet that just because of the St. Mary's game tonight, because it just feels exactly the same way. But anyway, I know Beaver's got to go night. He's got a big day tomorrow. Big day. So
yeah.
Appreciate you all for joining us. Beaver, you can go ahead and take us home. I think they all love the sound of your voice better than mine.
All right. Yep, that's all. The slate tomorrow's a disgrace, but we'll be back to it no matter what. And yeah, that's all. Everybody have a good night. Let's get some CLV, and that's it. Stay goated. See you tomorrow afternoon at 4.